Manu, 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 ¿dices que va bien o qué? ¿Eh? ¿O te reviento?
Buenos días.
Good morning. Welcome back. Before we start with this last part of this year's conference of independent publishers, I would like to apologize to all of you who are joining us via streaming. I apologize for starting late. The meeting that we had to try to reach an agreement about the conclusions was longer than we expected it to be. So I would like to apologize on behalf of the organization for this slight delay. Now we're going to hear now from Garasi Arula, who's going to be reading the declaration or the conclusions that we can take out of this meeting.
Eguerdion.
Good afternoon. It's afternoon now, so good afternoon, everyone.
Iruñeko adierazpena.
Pamplona Declaration. 4. An independent, decolonial, ecological, feminist, social, free and solidarity-based publishing. Gathered in the city of Pamplona between the 23rd and 26th of November 2021 at the International Conference on Independent Publishing, organized with the collaboration of REthinking, the Association of Independent Publishers of Navarre. We, the publishers of the International Alliance of Independent Publishers, reaffirm our commitment to the cultural, social and political character of books and reading, the democratization of books in our societies, reading as a liberating practice that forms critical citizens who actively and consciously participate in the community of which they are part. In recent years, independent publishing has undergone a major boom. While it testifies to the cultural diversity that makes the world of books so rich, we are also concerned about the technological evolution and developments that are occurring in the industry, and we are also concerned about the growing concentration which we see in our industry. The book industry is riddled with deep structural inequalities and maintains the permanence of hegemonies inherited from colonialism. Finally, we are concerned about the proliferation of various forms of censorship, which marginalizes diversity. Therefore, we, the publishers, are firmly committed to working for the following. We're committed to working to strengthen the cultural, social and political significance of books by asserting our dimension as a permanent laboratory, a space for reflection, elaboration and reaffirmation of the value of books and culture in our societies. To consolidate bibliodiversity in a decolonial, ecological, feminist, social and solidarity-based perspective based on the generation of a common world. We'll also work for a decolonial social and geopolitical ecology of the book, taking into account the interrelations, interdependencies, transversal and non-vertical relations of the actors, networks and circulations of the book. to strengthen the social and solidary character of the work on the book, considered as a common good by guaranteeing a fair price for books as economical as possible given the book ecosystem, making sustainable publishing possible, fair incomes for authors and publishers, reduce inequalities in the salaries of publishing house workers, research and promote practices that contribute to environmental protection, print in the country where we work, where conditions permit, avoid the use of plastics when they do not strongly affect the durability of the book, to produce small and medium first print runs, avoiding loss of copies and overstocking, seek new outlets, strengthening freedom of expression in the sense of fair speech, fighting against all forms of censorship, political, religious, moral, sexual, gender-based and market, denouncing the concentration and control of speech, which in practice limits freedom of expression, strongly opposing stigmatization and dehumanization, strengthening the International Alliance of International Publishers as the bearer of our advocacy, as the facilitator of our solidarity network, and as the guarantor of our commitments in a world rich in our differences, our shared values, and our common work. For independent publishing committed to our community, humanity, and the environment. Thank you very much.
Uno de los objetivos
One of the aims with which we organised this conference was to rethink independent publishing, rethink ourselves, rethink our goals and our aims. So this was the title, Rethink. Rethinking, the book of the future. We now are going to hear from two of our biodiversity ambassadors. First of all, we have Vandana Shiva from India. She's an author and an activist, and we will be hearing from her first.
Creativity alive in a period where small publishers weren't supposed to exist. Just like I have done my little bit of work in keeping diversity alive in farming and agriculture, and defended the freedom of seed and the freedom of food in a time where one company was supposed to control all the seed. One non-publisher, non-author wants to control all the publishing. And in fact, they're all clones of each other. They are no different. The Microsofts and the Amazons and the Bayers and the Monsantos, they work, of course, for maximizing extraction and profits, but they also work to control and extinguish. I do not think you can make profits in a world of diversity and self-organization without extinguishing diversity itself. It is a central principle. I have been working with diversity for the last 5 decades nearly, beginning with the forests and the farms. And when I left academic institutes, I took a pledge I would not publish, because I saw publishing as a rat race. And it was one of your network, Ritu Menon, who started Kali for Women, who persuaded me to write. So I want to thank you all, because your network has made me an author. Otherwise I wouldn't be writing. I would be acting, I would be doing science, I would be doing all the work I do. but I wouldn't be writing. I wouldn't be called an author of books. And I wouldn't have written the many books if I didn't have publishers who were sensitive, publishers who had their own networks, publishers who worked with my philosophy of smallness is beautiful. Smallness in self-organized form is largeness. It is largeness of mind, it is largeness of heart, it is largeness in terms of expanding the possibilities of humanity and the earth in a time where the dominant economy would like to shrink those possibilities. I have watched how monocultures entered agriculture, and that has been a large part of my own learning. But I have watched how India, the land of the most beautiful clothing, has ended up being a monoculture of junk clothing, the land of the most beautiful foods, the junk foods. You are keeping quality alive in the area of food for thought, like I do my bit in keeping quality alive in food. And it comes from diversity. Diversity is what weaves the web of life. Diversity is not a luxury. It is the very basis of both natural and cultural existence. Those who claim to be creating by extracting from diversity the diversity and creativity of writers, publishers, of the seed, of the soil, they are in fact putting an interesting creation boundary and denying the creativity of those from whom they steal. This is exactly what colonialism was. This is exactly what continued colonialism is, as I've written in my book, that again, Women Unlimited is published, and many of you have published Oneness versus 1%. Diversity is not just vital as the very fabric of social and cultural and ecological existence. Diversity is resilience. If you were not as diverse as you are, and if you did not publish the diversity of ideas that are necessary for our times, not only would you as a publishing network not have the resilience and robustness that is needed, but you wouldn't be providing that amazing robustness to society in a period where, like monocultures, are destroying the fertility of the soil and creating deserts. And every time I see large numbers of refugees, I think of how the possibility of staying home is being destroyed for more and more people, whether it's through wars, or through destruction of the soil, or through its extractivism of a level where life becomes impossible. You are arresting the desertification of our minds. Because if we had to live on the diet of the propaganda, on the diet of big data as the new oil, on the diet of a monoculture idea of what the world is, humanity will not survive. Humanity is already on the brink of collapse. So as we resist through our diversity, as we resist through our self-defined creativity, no matter how much there is denial of that creativity, the true creativity is in the seed. The true creativity is in the mycorrhizae in the soil. The true creativity is in the beautiful dialogue between our food and our gut. I'm basically trained in quantum theory, and I was just at a conference on how molecular biology reduced the world to this one-way central dogma that DNA is the master molecule, and it tells the RNA how to behave, which then tells the protein how to behave, and there is no conversation. But the world is conversation. All life is communication. Food is the communication of the soil to the plants, to our gut. Your publishing is the communication. And it's in the niches, in the cracks, that the light comes in. You are keeping that light coming for society. So I want to again thank you, because I know what it takes to not just stay small, but be small in aliveness and connect to other smalls who are equally alive. I see the world very much in the form of self-organization, that the central principle of all living systems, where they be organisms, or they be ecosystems, or they be ideas, or living cultures, or living economies, they are all based on self-organization. External control is an extractive system. All living systems are based on diversity. All living systems are based on the law of return, on circular economies, on sharing. And that's why you've created the economy of the future. Amazon is the dinosaur who's going to go. And when the world looks back, publishing will have been kept alive by you. Just as the small efforts that Vandana, the movement I started, has made in saving seeds, is what is necessary today in periods of climate havoc. The Monsanto Roundup Ready seeds and Bt toxin are totally failing. It's the climate resilient seeds nature had given and our farmers have evolved that are necessary as the cyclones come. The flood tolerant seeds or the drought tolerant seeds. That diversity, as I said before, is our resilience. It's our robustness, because diversity creates multiple relationships. Multiple relationships create synergy and symbiosis. And that is the true creativity. That dialogue of cooperation. Competition is an extinction. Competition of the powerful is a deliberate denial, first a bringing to invisibility, then marginalization, then extinction and extermination. And I believe your conference today and yesterday, as you meet as independent publishers, is part of the large movement that is saying we will not be pushed to extinction by a handful of greedy men who now run the corporations. The corporations used to be there, but today they are all owned by the same billionaires who have their same BlackRocks and their same Vanguards. The determination to refuse to go extinct is the ultimate will of freedom and creativity. And diversity is freedom. Smallness is freedom. Self-organization is freedom, not in isolation, not in atomistic insulation, but in vibrant networks of mutual support, vibrant networks of mutual nourishment. And you have done that work in the world of imagination. You've done that work in the world of freedom of expression. And when I look at the size of the propaganda machine, and I look at your size, I say you are the seeds of freedom for the future. Keep your work strong. We are with you. We are part of you. We are co-creators together. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I can hear you.
Muchas gracias, Vandana, Shiva.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
A continuación,
Now we're going to be hearing from Djaïli Amadou Amal. She is an author from Cameroon.
Bonjour à tous. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon by now. So, books as an essential product and vector of diversity in the world. That's what we're here to talk about. In our global world or village, teeming with its diversities, books are undoubtedly the essential, if not the most important, vector shared by the human race. It allows us to open up to the rest, in the sense that it helps us to immerse ourselves in their cultures, their customs, their values, knowing them with their differences and what they stand for, and makes them unique. However, getting to know others, their sociological universes and social and cultural dimensions, that's clearly the aspiration that we should have as humans, so that we can have a peaceful coexistence and we can all develop. So books are the tool for dialogue and sharing, openness and tolerance, a powerful vector of what we give and what we receive. And that's why it's at the heart of the future for humanity. I personally feel it should be a first necessity product, a commodity that should be protected and subsidized, just like we think about milk, sugar or wheat. And yet that's not a given. We have seen in France that books, up until very recently, were not considered that way. It only achieved the status of an essential product under a year ago, at the time of the start of the COVID-19 epidemic and after all the lobbying that was done for that to happen. In our world that is more disintegrated than ever before because of ignorance, obscurantism, and the temptations to withdraw into ourselves, not having a lack of calcium or carbohydrates in our diet is just as important for us to access education, so that we're not dangerous for ourselves or for others. We live in an increasingly complex and confused world, which is why culture and books are not just indispensable, but unavoidable. It is culture that nourishes the spirit and that builds us as human beings. We understand that in a reasonable world that wants to find the best for humanity, that is, humanity itself, books can be anything but something banal that just serves the capitalist market with all the polarization that entails, including the aspirations for concentration and domination, that is, monopoly. Subjecting books solely to the logic of capitalism, abandoning books to just bidding and tenders and profit-making, logically amounts to alienating what it is in its very essence, its fundamental values and its raison d'être, diversity. Publishers who believe in just market economy will probably not care very much about the color of their books. They will care about financial profit, about shareholders deciding what the aims and objectives should be for that company. But markets are not infinite, and domination often happens by hurting the smallest and even destroying alternative voices. Voices that are not heard end up disappearing, and with them the share of legitimate and necessary diversity that is like a concert played by nations and building a more tolerant, more peaceful and self-focused humanity. Books are about diversity and the promotion of minoritized or even alternative voices rest on the shoulders of independent publishers, always committed with that conviction and with their engagement to the causes that don't believe in the law of capitalism. That's what brings to life the cultural essence that justifies the philosophy at the meeting point between what we give and what we receive, which is so dear to human nature. An independent editor often specializes in editorial lines that are often neglected by others because they're considered not less important or less promising, but because the target audience is meant to be insignificant. This is why the Alliance of Independent Publishers plays such an important role in the pooling of resources and subsidization of publications. That's the system that its members have set up. As a writer, I published my first 3 novels in Cameroon with Ifriqiya and then with Proximité, 2 members of the Alliance, by the way. And I'm very happy to recall how my first novel, Walande, The Art of Sharing, a Husband, that won a prize, which was thanks to the Alliance, the Prince Claus Foundation Prize. The book was going to be in Arabic for the readers in Arabic-speaking countries. Well, how would I have even dreamed to achieve that success in Cameroon without the support of the Alliance? My third novel, Monial, Tears of Patience, is now available in many French-speaking African countries thanks to the Terre Solidaire connection, one of the Alliance's connection. Many African authors appear on that list, but I'm particularly proud to be part of that list, living and working in a sub-Saharan country. That says a lot about the spirit of diversity the Alliance stands for and explains the values that we writers and publishers have to stand for and promote. And again, the Alliance plays a fundamental role in this issue, partly compensating for all the problems that the distribution of books have in sub-Saharan Africa and particularly in French-speaking countries in Africa. Book prices are now lower, more affordable, because books that come from Europe are so high that even the so-called middle classes in Africa can't access them. Now, about Monial, Tears of Patience, my novel, I would like to tell you just briefly how my work went from the Cameroonian edition to the French edition. This happened the day after the book was given the first Orange Book Prize in Africa in 2019. I wanted to keep the editorial rights, the publishing rights in sub-Saharan Africa and continue to publish it with Proximity, the publishing house, so that the book could be available in our countries at an affordable price. Just like Walande, my book, which is now part of the curriculums in secondary school English-speaking schools. Monial is now available in French-speaking secondary schools. Well, co-publishing is certainly an option that should be encouraged. Something that writers publishing in Western countries should encourage their European publishers to do in partnership with publishers in Africa. By doing so, we would help greatly the circulation of books in African countries. I'm very pleased to hear that this initiative, this formula, is becoming more and more popular. I truly believe that the emancipation of African publishing houses will also include the development of co-publishing, and that it will be beneficial to all the parties involved, with common causes such as diversity and better circulation of books. The book market in French-speaking Africa has been led for a long time by Western publishers, and that should gradually be rebalanced to favor local publishing houses, and that will help book production locally in this virtuous circle, and by domino effect would also help our industry be more dynamic and productive. I would also like to say something about minority languages. I've often been asked why I didn't write in Fulani, my native language. Well, if I was writing in Peul or Fulani, I would be using the Latin or Arabic alphabet for a target audience in the Sahel that is not familiar with those alphabets, wouldn't be able to read the book properly. My book would have been designed for an audience who wouldn't be able to decipher the code. As a result, in a society which is very diverse and at the same time partitioned by linguistic cultural barriers, and because my book had a target audience that was small originally and often illiterate, I decided to change the language that would have made more sense initially. It was the consistent decision. So writers should always know who we write for. If we write for a diverse readership, then we need to find the right vector, the right medium for our text to reach our audience with the best possibilities to reach as large a potential readership as possible. Literature in African countries is anchored on the vector languages or medium languages taught at school, that is either French or English in Cameroon. Those languages are part of our education system, and as a writer with a mother tongue that's Fulani or Pearl, I've always thought in my language but written in French, and in fact my writing means translating from my ideas in Fulani to my writing in French. That also happens with other languages. This is part of the wish to keep minority or minoritized languages alive as much as possible, and have texts that will represent those languages in a bilingual publication. Balande, my book, has been translated into Wolof in Senegal and is available on both in the Senegalese market in a bilingual French Wolof edition. That will be very positive for Wolof readers, where they will have a book with both versions together. Another interesting aspect about diversity is discrimination against women in the publishing industry and the lack of recognition and acknowledgement women have. We can't address diversity without talking about the discrimination against women in general and also in the field of business in particular. We've seen many examples, and the last Nobel Prize winners, we only had one woman who was a laureate for the Nobel Prize for Peace, and she shared that prize with a man. What is the situation in the publishing industry? I don't have the facts and figures, but I still feel that we should understand this is a general problem, not specific to certain areas, and we need to work and lobby on gender issues for the improvement of social and professional roles for women. We need proactive and egalitarian policies, not based on backward ideas that seem to take for granted that women are less competitive than men or even competent. We should give women the same opportunities as men find with the right conditions so that they don't have the hurdles they currently find. Just like in any non-egalitarian societies, it's the dominant groups that decide how things should be done. Well, we should continue the struggle to help women overcome all the injustice and undermining of their social and professional lives. We need to better research the problems that women find in the book industry, and then do our best to try and overcome that situation, which is unacceptable. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. And we've thoroughly enjoyed listening to our two ambassadors, and unfortunately it's now time to close our week. So on behalf of REthinking and on behalf of the International Alliance, I would like to thank you. Thank you on behalf of REthinking to the International Alliance to decide that Pamplona would be your venue. Thank you to our partners locally, that is the regional government of Navarre, with the different departments involved. Thank you to the City Council of Pamplona. Thank you to the interpreting team and the sound technicians in the company Telesonic. They've done wonderful things to make sure that we could all communicate, and sometimes under very difficult circumstances, with speakers intervening far too fast very often. I want to thank everybody, all the different teams here at Baluarte, the conference center. They've made it possible for us to connect remotely with people too. And thank you in the audience for being here with us personally and remotely. It's been such a pleasure having you here in Pamplona, and it's very, very rewarding having seen the fruit of this week. And just to be practical, like I've been doing for the whole week, please don't forget to leave your interpreting devices before you leave the building. Thank you very much for your attention.